Chapter 2197, You're gone, but what about them? Hu Mengfang positioned himself in the rear, using Fox Demon enchantment techniques to shield Jiang Guanghan, preventing Slake from petrifying him. Simultaneously, he chose to deploy the Fox Demon's inner core for long-range fire support. This forced Slake to divide his attention between two fronts while still confronting Jiang Guanghan head-on. If Jiang Guanghan could engage Slake in close combat, he would even hold the advantage in raw physical strength alone. Enhancement-type ability users possess the power to instantly overwhelm opponents at close range, transcending their level. Boom! Hu Mengfang opened his huge fox jaws, unleashing another powerful energy beam that spanned 8 kilometers, hurtling straight toward Slake. Simultaneously, Jiang Guanghan charged forward at breakneck speed, hammer in hand. A sense of foreboding gripped Slake. Their coordination was too seamless, every move calculated to target her. Just then, Rhine's warning echoed in her ear, jolting her into realization. Damn it! Don't think this will defeat me. Slake's eyes glowed with icy cruelty. First, she shattered Hu Mengfang's demonic light with her silver flash laser. Facing Jiang Guanghan's close-range assault, this time she didn't flinch or dodge, she charged forward. She possessed innate confidence in her physical strength, for the lizard folk's constitution far surpassed that of humans. So what if your enhancement? Your inherent weakness means you'll never match my raw power. Her massive two-legged serpent body, over 200 meters long, surged forward along the ground toward Jiang Guanghan. Jiang clenched his teeth. Bring it on! Both charged headlong, neither yielding, closing the distance in an instant. Slake wasn't foolish. Instead of using her head to meet the opponent's heavy hammer, she spun violently at the last moment, lashing out with her tail. Harnessing rotational force and the principle of leverage, the speed of this tail strike would reach terrifying levels. Crack! A loud sonic boom echoed through the air, like the crack of a massive whip. Jiang Guanghan showed no sign of panic. Gripping his warhammer with both hands, he unleashed a deafening roar. Ah! Though Jiang Guanghan appeared as tiny as an ant compared to Slake's colossal form, the force behind this strike was no joke. Bang! The hammer slammed into the two-legged serpent's tail, first producing a sharp crack, then immediately sending blood spraying everywhere. Hiss! Slake let out a wretched howl. Jiang Guanghan's hammer had shattered her scales, embedding itself deep into her tail flesh and snapping off a chunk of it cleanly. Jiang Guanghan's eyes burned brighter, his gaze growing fiercer. Facing the two-legged snake's attacks, they had devised countless countermeasures. Perfect strategies had been formulated for every threat, its fangs, tail strikes, and claw swipes. Thus, Jiang Guanghan remained utterly unsurprised by any assault. In terms of raw power, I hold no significant advantage. He held his warhammer level, pointing it at the wailing Slake. But haven't you lizard folk learned that under equal pressure, the smaller the contact area, the greater the pressure? Slake's scales, of course, were no match for the heavy hammer forged from metal. This outcome was entirely expected. She let out a piercing scream and suddenly burrowed headfirst into the ground. Sand and stones flew as she swiftly dug a large pit in the ground, vanishing from Jiang Guanghan's sight. Escaped? Hu Mengfang, witnessing this, made the wisest choice immediately, soaring into the air. For now, Slake might abandon the troublesome Jiang Guanghan and come to kill him first. Without his abilities to assist, Jiang Guanghan stood no chance against Slake. Jiang Guanghan hovered dozens of meters above the ground, his right arm slung over his shoulder holding the heavy hammer, carefully sensing every change in his surroundings. She won't flee. This is her home. Where could she possibly run? Barring any surprises, Slake would undoubtedly launch an attack from underground, using some bizarre method, targeting either Jiang Guanghan or Hu Mengfang. But Jiang Guanghan and Hu Mengfang weren't fools. One was the cunning strategist of the Northeast region, the other a seemingly reckless veteran who'd cut his teeth on countless battlefields. How could they let Slake seize the initiative? Go! Without hesitation, they abandoned Slake and headed westward. To the west lay a vast urban district, now plunged into utter chaos. Countless lizard men, with nowhere to flee, swarmed the city streets like headless flies. They couldn't escape the eastern city, the front lines were even more perilous, and their path to the central district was blocked by the lizardmen's law enforcement. Though armed, they were utterly incapable of fighting humans. Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan exchanged a glance before launching their attack. Jiang Guanghan raised his heavy hammer high, standing hundreds of meters above the city skyline. He aimed it directly at the central district and brought it crashing down. Boom! The shockwave descended like a reaper of love. Buildings weren't merely toppled, their molecular structures shattered by the force, pulverized instantly. The lizard men fared no better. Before they could comprehend what struck them, surrounding structures crumbled from top to bottom like sandcastles swept away by a gale. Then, pft, pft, pft. Their bodies exploded into splatters of blood. The scene was gruesome, yet their deaths were mercifully swift, sparing them prolonged agony. Hu Mengfang showed no mercy either. Perched atop a towering spire, he aimed downward and unleashed an energy cannon blast. A single strike reduced an entire street of houses and lizard men to ashes, scorched like ants in flames. Hu Mengfang unleashed energy cannons in rapid succession, turning the area into a river of blood. Recalling the first invasion of the northeast region by the Wulwan Empire, where countless civilians and mighty Tiger Guard had been slaughtered, Hu Mengfang's killing intent only intensified. He bombarded entire buildings along with the lizard men inside, the terrifying energy blasts craters dozens of meters deep into the earth. Even the lizard men hiding in cellars to escape the catastrophe found no refuge, meeting gruesome ends. Ah! The lizard men went mad. It was fear that drove them utterly insane. Facing such a demon who slaughtered lizard men without batting an eye, they had no direction to flee, no place to hide, only death awaited them. Chapter 2198, War Knows No Mercy 3. Despair, utter, endless despair. They surged frantically toward the border, pleading with the soldiers holding the line to let them enter the central city for refuge. But the soldiers refused outright. The relentless pressure finally erupted into a bloodbath. It was unclear whether civilians struck first or soldiers fired the opening shots. At the city's edge, laser weapons blazed from the lizard men soldiers' barrels, slicing through their own kind like a hot knife through butter. The lizard men's weapons were highly advanced, making them exceptionally effective against fellow lizard men. Blood didn't flow for humanity, instead, it stained vast swathes of the city red with the blood of their own kind. Though Slake remained underground, she sensed everything unfolding above ground. She was stunned. Never had she imagined these two humans could be so despicable, powerful beings actually targeting ordinary people. Indeed, the horror of the sixth generation surpasses our wildest imaginings. Slake held her composure, not rushing to reveal herself. She felt anger at her kind being slaughtered, even a twinge of pain. Yet in the Wulwan Empire, those who reached her level had all endured brutal training. War demanded ruthlessness, mercy held no place, not even for kin. If she emerged only to be slain, more lizard folk would perish. She bided her time. Jiang Guanghan and Hu Mengfang remained vigilant, not letting themselves become consumed by the slaughter of the lizard men. They fought while maintaining their guard. Seeing Slake still hadn't revealed herself, Jiang Guanghan narrowed his eyes. She's stalling for time, using these ordinary lizard men to devise a countermeasure against us. Hu Mengfang declared, this can't continue. If we wait any longer, she might choose to swap opponents. For the top-tier mutant of the Wulwan Empire, the optimal strategy at this moment was to exchange adversaries. However, Jiang Guanghan and his team would never grant the Wulwan Empire's mutants such an opportunity. They first alerted their comrades on other battlefronts via the communication channel, instructing them to contact Jiang Guanghan immediately if anything seemed amiss. Then, Jiang Guanghan gazed upon the lizard men in the city, like ants trapped in a sea of despair, and suddenly a brilliant idea struck him. He exchanged a few words with Hu Mengfang. Hu's eyes lit up, and he burst into laughter. Who'd have thought a big-eyed, bushy-browed guy like you could come up with such a vicious idea? But I like it. When dealing with these lizard people, there's no need for mercy. Maintaining a safe distance, the two began their operation. Instead of deliberately slaughtering large numbers of lizard men, they started driving them from the eastern city's periphery toward its central districts. They knew the terrain of the Wulwan Empire well. The eastern city spanned over 300 kilometers east to west, vertically divided into 3 major tiers, housing a population exceeding 5 million. What would happen if they drove all these creatures to the border defenses, putting pressure on the central city? Slake might not care about the lives of ordinary people, but once the central city, the safety of the nobles and the royal family, was threatened, she probably wouldn't remain calm. At this point, Slake still didn't know what they intended to do. She only assumed they were using the slaughter of lizard men civilians to force her into the open. Slake did not launch a rash attack. She had already realized that when facing these two together, her abilities were completely countered. The pair hovered in the sky, maintaining a distance of less than 100 meters between them. If she acted impulsively and attacked either one, not only would she be detected early, but she would also face an attack from the other. In an unclear situation, the best course was to avoid combat, otherwise, she would only trap herself in a predicament. The thought of escape crossed her mind, yet if she fled now, this entire war zone would fall. The Wulwan Empire's forces were at an absolute disadvantage in this campaign. Nearly half of their elite mutants had perished in the battle against Huashu Kingdom, and most of those fallen possessed strength surpassing even the current silver armor troops. To minimize casualties, Zhang Yi had assembled nearly twice as many Epsilon-tier mutant as the Wulwan Empire possessed. Thus, Slake could not retreat. If she retreated, these two would advance unimpeded into the central district, a far worse outcome. Fighting was impossible, retreating was impossible, Slake's head ached intensely. She hoped to seek assistance from other silver armor mutants. If any silver armor units won on other battlefields, she could call them for support. But when Slake opened the communication channel, she was shocked to find nothing but bad news. Damn it, how do they know my abilities so well? I'm fighting 2 of them alone. One of them is already enough to give me a headache. Whoever's winning, hurry over and help me. This is getting tough. Slake felt her scalp tingle. Everywhere was struggling to hold their own, let alone come to her aid. Before she could dwell on it, however, she received a reprimand from Imperial High Command. Commander Slake. Civilians in your sector are breaching the Central District defenses. What on earth is going on? Are you going to let all those refugees into the Imperial City? Resolve that situation immediately. In truth, Jiang Guanghan and Hu Mengfang were deliberately herding the people from this district toward the central city, like shepherds herding a flock of sheep. Millions of people, a dense, swarming mass, filled the streets. No one dared raise a gun to fire upon the humans above them, past attempts had proven futile. Thus, they could only move like sheep, driven toward the imperial palace. They believed they couldn't handle these intruders, but the palace's formidable defenses, guarded by the emperor and noble lords, surely possessed a solution. Initially, the law enforcers at the border and the garrison troops in the central district could still maintain order through force. But now, with Hu Mengfang and Jiang Guanghan pressing them from behind, they had no choice but to advance toward the central district, however unwillingly. Forward meant death, backward meant death. Yet moving forward held a sliver of hope for safe passage. Retreating? They didn't believe humanity would spare them. Thus, as more and more lizard men gathered at the central city's border defenses, the situation grew terrifying. Initially, the border soldiers felt a sense of reluctance, yet they dared not disobey their superiors' orders. They had no choice but to open fire, shooting down some of the lizard men who breached the checkpoints.